But thanks for joining us. So my name is Haley, at communications for the Keystone Trails Association, which is Pennsylvania's state hiking association, and we host monthly webinars related to or around hiking and hiking opportunities in the Commonwealth. And this evening, we are lucky to have two of our outstanding hiking leaders, so Shawna and Terry, a father-daughter duo who have led a few excursions for us, and most recently, through 2024 and 2025, we've completed the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail under their supervision. So we did it. It was awesome. And we're going to hear their story and kind of how they got into hiking. And that segues really great into Kim Peck's presentation on the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. Kim is the environmental education specialist for the Laurel Hill State Park complex. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Shawna and Terry.
All right, thanks, Haley. I'm going to see if I can share out my screen here. I have a couple of slides to go along with our content. My dad has seen some of it, but not all of it. So I'm excited to see what he thinks about my presentation here. Are you guys viewing this okay? All right, awesome. So we're happy to be here. Haley gave us a lovely introduction. I feel like we need no further introduction. We've been members of the KTA and more recently volunteers for some time now. So I always joked with my dad that I was eventually going to write a book about all of our adventures and that I would call it When I Go Hiking with Dad. So that's kind of how I've structured our talk this evening. Okay, so here's our table of contents. I have four main chapters that I want to talk about or that we want to talk about. We'd like to talk to you about how we got started in long distance backpacking. We want to specifically talk about the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail because we love it and that's kind of where we learned some of our most important lessons. We also want to speak with you about things that we've done with and for the KTA and a few other fun volunteer opportunities that we've had and then a little bit at the end about some recent trips that we've been doing and maybe a couple of tips if you're interested. So, Dad, here's your first surprise. I asked AI to create a cover for the book that I didn't write yet. And that's kind of what I got. I had to make a few adjustments here and there, but I don't know. It's a work in progress. What do you think?
Nice. I love it. The beard's not quite long enough, but
Don't worry, I threw in some beard pictures at the end. No
oh,
worries.
okay.
Okay. So, chapter one, we want to talk about how we even got started in long distance backpacking. So, for as long as I can remember, my dad and I always took adventures together when I was a kid. You know, we would carve out like a week, not really have a plan, or maybe he had a plan and he just led me to believe that there was no plan.
No, there was no plan. It was just pack a bag. We're going somewhere.
Sometimes he had some suggestions. That was where I first learned like how to read a map because, you know, a kid in the front seat, he would hand me the map and say, okay, here's where we're trying to go. Tell me what roads to get on. So as long as I can remember, we had been doing that. Sort of into outdoorsy stuff, but not necessarily backpacking. So then in 2000, when I was starting college, we had a required reading for incoming freshmen, and the book was A Walk in the Woods, obviously a very famous book. Their outcome wasn't super great on the AT, but I remember reading that book and I thought, wow, like people actually do this. They pack all their stuff and they go on the trail and this sounds really cool. So, Dad, what did I say?
You need to read this book. And you said, do people really do this? So that went from there. I read the book and I'm like, yeah, people do this. Although I had never really hiked or backpacked. I mean, when I was a kid, we would get together with the neighbors, raid the refrigerator, grab a sleeping bag, and go up on the top of the hill on the farm and sleep out and build a fire. But really no hiking, backpacking experience. So that's where it began.
Yeah, so regardless, he was like, "Oh, okay, like I'll buy us some stuff and we'll give it a try." So we were checking our dates the past couple weekends. We were hanging out, and I think we did a pretty good job putting all of our dates together. But we're pretty sure it was 2001. We walked in on the Seward end of the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. The first shelter is about 5 miles in, and we just wanted to see what it was like. So we kind of did like a day, like walked in. I think maybe we ate there and then walked back
Yeah.
out just to kind of get a feel for the place. And then after that, we did end up doing the trail in its entirety, all 70 miles, but we did it in two parts. So we're thinking maybe similar to like we've done with the KTA, like start at Route 30 and go to one end for one trip, and then start at Route 30 and do the other end for a separate, I'm sure they were separate years too. Um,
Yes.
so that's how we originally completed the trail. Um, Also, I just kind of threw in here too, after we had done a couple of trips, we did drive out to Hamburg to the Cabela's out there. They were offering like a backpacking 101, and we were like, okay, like we're new, let's go out. I think we made like a whole weekend of it. And I remember leaving that thinking like, oh, I think we're doing pretty good. I feel like we already knew most of that, right?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we picked up a few tips. I think I remember changing a little bit of gear after that Cabela trip, upgrading. So yeah, I had the same feeling.
So we left there feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I know the picture quality isn't that great, but I was asking my dad to scrounge up some old pictures. So this was like a picture of a picture, but we were trying to show you guys what it looked like in our first couple of trips. So we were hoping that you you would notice my ginormous pack here. We were definitely overpacked. I don't think I was wearing the right shoes. I feel like I haven't worn pants hiking in forever. I never hike in pants anymore. And then we were kind of laughing about this picture. I mean, you could see it was quite a few years ago. But this was one of the things that we learned. So this is a picture of my dad. It was lunchtime, and we remember that it like we were on the trail and it hit lunchtime, and we were like, oh, it's time to eat lunch. And we literally dropped our packs, I think, right in the middle of the trail, and just
Yes.
cooked lunch literally right on the trail. So you could see he has the stove and everything set up. So that's definitely something that we don't do anymore. Right? You remember that, Dad? Just let's just okay, it's lunchtime. Let's just eat right here.
Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, like you explained it perfectly. We just like, and I agree. I think we were on the trail. It's like, okay, here's a little bit of a clearing. Let's just do lunch. So we talking about gear. We didn't have any sit pads or anywhere to relax, and we didn't even look for like we do now, like a log or some rocks, a place to get a little bit comfortable. No, it was like break open the packs, get out the stove, let's start making lunch.
And like a full-blown lunch, like a full like backpacking, like
Yeah.
dried meal, like a full meal, which I feel like we don't really do that anymore either.
I don't remember like what I know we did try some MREs early on, but other than that, I don't recall like what was on our food list, if you remember anything.
I feel like we did try MREs initially, but I feel like we abandoned them pretty quickly once we
Yeah.
discovered like actual backpacking food. But I feel like in these days, it was like a full breakfast meal, a full lunch meal, a full dinner meal. Like we probably spent, well, I guess they weren't as expensive back then, but I was going to say we probably spent like $60 a day eating.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, I think we were doing some full-blown meals back in the day.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Dad, you want to add to our getting started?
Not that I can think of.
All right.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right, moving on. Chapter 2, we wanted to dedicate a whole chapter to the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. So as we mentioned on the previous slide, we did initially complete the trail in 2 sections. So I think we probably did that in consecutive years. And then we did ultimately become ridge runners. So I think it was at one point we were on the trail in the shelter area and they had a little sign and it was like, oh, you want to be a ridge runner? Just like send an email here. And I think I remember saying to dad, like, oh, this will give us an excuse to at least get on the trail every year because it'll be like, oh, well, it's our official duty. Like we're ridge runners. We have to. So we did do some ridge running for the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. We haven't done anything super recent. We're still getting the emails. I just feel like I'm in a busy stage of life right now. So, but we're definitely still on the email list. And then I do have some old pictures here also. Once we finish, oh, go ahead.
The ridge running, I was just going to explain, like as a volunteer ridge runner, um, because we live closer to the northern part of the Laurel Highlands. That's a section that we chose as ridge runners. And it was just a matter of, uh, like Shauna said, an excuse to go hiking, but it was more than that because we always pick up litter along the way, um, pick up limbs, smaller limbs along the trail. And if there's any overhanging dead trees or anything down, we always note that. And then Shauna would send a report in, like to let them know that they need some maintenance on the trail, a tree cut, or just to let them know the trail looks good and we were on it. So, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we really, it's it's not like a through hike. It's more relaxing and, you take some snacks and food. So we really enjoyed it.
No, that's definitely a good explanation of it. So I guess even though we haven't done any official like trail work days, most years we make it onto the trail, give or take. Eventually we started taking my daughters. So these pictures are a little bit old as well because my daughters are now 15 and 12. But we started taking them. I believe my oldest was 4 or 5 the first time that we took her. And like my dad was explaining, we live closer to the Seward end. So we just sort of worked up a little one night trip over. Was that the 271 parking? Is that where we park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we kind of like crafted this trip that we've done several years with at least one daughter, or more recently, both of them, where we park at the 271 trail parking. Then it's about 8 miles to that last shelter before you get to that Seward end. And then we spend the night there and then we hike 5 miles out the next day. So again, we've been doing it for quite a few years. We missed a few years here and there, but sometimes my kids are busy or sometimes we maybe have a hard time talking them into it.
They definitely didn't know what they were getting into when we started taking them hiking. So it was an experience, a good experience, and and it helped us, I believe, um, on our gear and food and everything. So well worth it.
Hmm. Yeah, there were plenty of years where, one year my dad carried Hannah, my oldest daughter, and then I carried most of our gear. I mean, obviously now that they're older, they carry a lot of their own gear, but and we make some adjustments for them too. We make sure that they have a few comforts, a few creature comforts while we're out there. But yeah, they definitely didn't know what they were getting into. I thought these pictures were nice too. In case you haven't been to the shelter areas on the Laurel Highlands Trail, you can kind of get a glimpse of them here. They're very nice. That's part of what we love about the Laurel Highlands Trail is that they have the shelter areas that you need to stay at. So it kind of takes the thought process out of like, I don't know, how many miles should we walk today? Where should we stay? That at least takes that part of the planning away in case you're new and you're nervous about getting out there and trying to make those decisions. But yeah, the first time my youngest daughter, Jenna, went, I think she was 5. I think we waited until she was 5. This is one of my like funnier stories I think about hiking. And we were hiking into the shelter, and I had tried to explain it to her a million times, like, oh, we're going to walk in, we're going to spend the night in the shelter, we're going to walk out the next day. Well, I guess I didn't describe it well enough because as we were walking in, she tripped, fell over. She had like a little pair of shorts on that she got dirty, and she turned and looked at me and asked me if the cabin had a washer and dryer. And I was like, oh, I think I looked at dad and I'm like, this sweet child has no idea that she's going to sleep in this shelter that only has 3 walls.
Yeah, on a hard platform. But she never really brought anything up though after that. Like it may have been a surprise, but being a kid, she rolled with it. So it was good.
She did. Is there anything else you wanted to add here, Dad? I guess about the Laurel Highlands in general.
Um, well, I think you covered it pretty well. The part at the shelter area, like you said, we hike into to spend the night with the girls. When they were younger, there's a small stream goes right there, right through the shelter area, which was always um, where they spent a lot of time flipping over rocks and looking for crayfish or salamanders or something. So they enjoyed that part of it. Um,
Yeah, plus I guess it's a nice setup. Again, maybe assuming that some of you haven't been there before, just maybe the
True.
other amenities that are there, if you want to talk about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's like 5 or 7 shelters per shelter area, something like that. I'm not
I
exactly
think
sure.
5.
5. And it's really nice. Like 3 of the shelter areas are grouped. At least 2 of them are. One's nearby. If you're with a larger group and they each have a fire ring. So, I mean, if you're with a large group or if you just looking to make friends, which we have done, join people at a fire in the evening. Um, and the park provides firewood also, which is wonderful. Um, and then they have the privies, the men's and the ladies' room, and some water, a water supply there. And then away from the shelter area is a tenting and hammock area. So it has about whatever you would want or whatever you're looking to do is all right there. And like Shauna said, it just takes a lot of the worry out of like how far is it? You have a map. They're all marked, the mileage markers on the trail, and it was just, I mean, we just stepped into the perfect trail for learning to hike, for for testing gear, checking gear, changing gears. So have enjoyed it for years.
Yeah, I feel like we highly recommend it. Like anybody that sort of asks us, like, oh, I'd love to get into it, but I'm not sure, or where should I start? I feel like we're forever saying, if you live close to the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail, do it. Also, more recently, they've added bear poles, which is phenomenal. We were
Oh
excited to
yeah.
see the bear poles to hang your food because that kind of, again, takes the thought process out of that. And like my dad was saying, the mile markers are really nice. The terrain is good. It's a lot of ridge walking. It does kind of, drop on either end into Ohio Pile and Seward, which is why I think we planned it like that to like, hey, let's start in the middle and hike down, and then let's start in the middle and hike down. So I guess we put
I
a little thought into that.
I think that may fall under some of our tips, looking at the terrain and in our section hiking. So
Yeah, to
we
see
can
like,
talk about,
should we do this northbound or should we do this southbound?
yes, yes.
Okay, so chapter three, we wanted to just mention a couple of things about how we got involved with the KTA and things that we've done with the KTA. So as we were kind of recalling our early days with the KTA, are you cracking up at the pictures?
Now, well, no, I was just thinking that looks like Linda right there, and I think that might be her sister I'm helping across the stream, maybe. So, no, go
And
ahead.
like, I didn't even know Linda was going to be here.
Yeah.
Um, no, so we were like, how did we get involved with the KTA initially? Well, we were looking to do some mid-state trail hiking and we needed some maps. So I think it was my dad that found out maybe online or somehow that the KTA had maps that you could purchase for the mid-state trail for different sections that we were doing for that because we have done 5 or 6 trips on the mid-state. Is that right? About 5 or 6,
Um,
is that what we decided?
on the mid-state?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least I would say. Yeah, at
Okay.
least 5 or 6.
Yeah, which we enjoyed. The Mid-State is not the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. We'll just say that. If you have any questions about it, let us know. But after that, we did our first trail care ever that we did with the KTA was at Keystone State Park, with which both of us live fairly close to. We did some maintenance on some of the trails there. It was like a weekend, and I feel like that was our first real introduction to the KTA and what it does as an organization and how well their weekends are run. I believe it was after that, I was trying to put them in chronological order, that we did one of their, I can't remember if it was a fall meeting or a spring meeting, but we did do a weekend in Wellsboro. They had one of their weekend meetings there. So we went out to see what they had to offer. Do you remember? I guess it doesn't matter, but was that a fall weekend or a spring meeting?
Um, Boy, I was thinking spring, but I cannot be positive about that.
Yeah. Um, After that, we started getting into their trail challenges. So I think we did their trail challenge a couple of times. We've also
Yes.
done Heiner. Like that was once we got into backpacking, then we started to get a little bit into trail challenges because they're fun. They kind of give you the same like outdoorsy sort of feel, and you have to plan some food if you don't have time for a full blown backpacking trip. And then we've done a couple of slack packs with them aside from the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail that Haley was talking about that we've helped to lead. We did the Black Forest Trail and the Allegheny Front Trail slack packs, which is sort of how we got into leading them. It's like we did one or two, and then it was sort of like, hey, like we can't find people. Do you think you guys could help us? So then we kind of switched gears and helped out with leading a little bit. So I do have some pictures here from one of those adventures, one of those Slack packs, and then a little certificate there. Did you say that was from the Keystone State Park?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that was. Yeah,
Okay.
I noticed it had a year on it when I sent you that picture just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
But
What do you think,
yes.
Linda? You made it into the presentation. Dad, anything else that you wanted to mention about KTA events or volunteering that we've done?
You touched on like and it's exactly the way it happened. Like we were planning to try something a little different than the Laurel Highlands after we um finished it. And yes, it was research online, I think, that took me to KTA for the all the guidebook and the maps, I think we bought from KTA. Um, and lo and behold, if you're a member, you get a discount on the merchandise. So that's when we joined.
I was
Was
just thinking that you were like, oh, I joined because you got like a little bit of a discount on these.
Yeah, I knock a buck or two off, and like, oh, okay, sure. That sounds good. So that's how we became members. to the KTA, and have been ever since. So,
All right. Are we good?
yeah, I think so.
I put another slide in here just about some other opportunities that we've had and I've had, because I do feel like the longer we've done this, that's something we're kind of more passionate about here. I couldn't remember the year, but we worked at a Women in the Outdoors event. We just had a little setup and kind of like this, just talked to people about gear and backpacking, and we sort of knew someone that was involved with the organization. So we thought that was kind of cool to do that. I am a teacher. I've taught in elementary school, I've taught middle school. So I did spend a lot of years working it into my curriculum. And this is one of the books that I would sometimes use to do that because I could tie in the whole, like guide dogs and hero dogs and that sort of thing. So that's a pretty cool children's book if you haven't heard that one before. I did present at a Girl Scout troop once. I had a friend that I worked with, and her daughters were involved in Girl Scouts. So that was fun to do a little presentation for them. And then at my previous school district, we would take our sixth graders to Camp Souls, and they would spend like 3 days, 2 nights there. And this is a picture of my setup there. We took the kids around to different stations, and often they would hire experts or even get someone from like the forestry department to come in and teach the kids about different things. So at some point they were like, well, Shawna, like, can't you're kind of an expert on like camping and hiking and stuff. So I started doing that, and I did that for a number of years as well. So the kids would kind of hike up to me, they would see my setup, and I would usually try to teach them the leave no trace principles. Some of the kids had spent some time in the woods, but I really felt like a lot of those kids I was teaching really didn't know much about like leave no trace and how to exist in the woods, and do all the right things. So I always had fun doing that. Um, Dad?
Um, no, that's great picture. Although I've never been to Camp Souls or with you or at any time, but I was just thinking about the picture, would be a explanation of where your tent is setting for anyone that has never been around different areas of hiking. I know we've stayed in them before or on them, like a tent platform, places we had been where there were no level spots or there were too many rocks to even attempt to set up a tent. They build these beautiful little platform like a deck, and then they put hooks um, around the edge so you can tie your tent off, which was really we stayed on them a couple times
Hmm.
and they worked well. So that was just what thought I had was an explanation of that platform there.
Okay, I thought you like saw something in the picture and you're
No,
like,
no,
what are you doing there?
no. I remember using them, and I didn't even think that that's
Yeah.
an option. Staying in a shelter, pitching a tent on the ground, or in certain areas, places have platforms.
This is a pretty decent hill. So I think that was the issue there. So they had placed some of these tent platforms up there. And it kind of gave you like a nice view of the lodge and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right, awesome. So chapter 4, we just wanted to mention that more recently we've been doing a lot of sections on the Appalachian Trail. It took us a while to get to the Appalachian Trail because we thought it was like this like mystical, magical creature that like we weren't quite ready for, which I think is why we started to do the mid-state after the Laurel Highlands Trail. And then eventually we were like, it's just a hiking trail. Like we have to just try it. So we think we started the AT and did our first trip on the AT in 2012. And then it kind of snowballed from there. We started in Pennsylvania. And so the original goal was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let's finish the, 270 some, however odd miles are in Pennsylvania. So then once we finished that, we continued to work our way out pretty far on either end. A handful of years ago, we flew to Georgia to the southern terminus and hiked 2 weeks north, and we've kind of built on from there. So we are more than halfway done section hiking the AT. That's kind of one of our current passions. So I have our miles that we've completed here and our miles that we have left to go. We usually do it in the summer. I'm a teacher, like I said, so I'm off in the summer. My dad will take some time off and we'll do a summer hiking trip. This summer, we walked through Grayson Highlands in Virginia, and they have these feral ponies there that they took up, I believe, in the 70s for land management. And it was absolutely gorgeous. So I have a picture of my dad here on top of a mountain. And then this was a morning we encountered a bunch of those feral ponies. So it was beautiful. If you ever get the chance to go there, very beautiful.
And the Appalachian Trail in different sections, we've done like probably as little as 3 day weekends on the Appalachian Trail. If we can, it's like, hey, we've got like a long 3 or 4 day weekend. Let's go grab some miles. Or like Shawna said, that I think 2 years in a row, we did 2 consecutive weeks and knocked off a good chunk of mileage that way. Um, but it takes a lot of planning and travel to get where we want to go. But we always talk about it and find time to do it. So we're on our way.
Yeah, I also thought this picture was a good representation of how far we've come from those early pictures. So we do have ultralight backpacks, so we've slimmed down a little bit. More recently, we've been also doing like the fanny pack in front to stash like snacks and stuff that we need to grab quickly, some lightweight poles. I also thought this picture was kind of funny because you could see I'm holding my phone, and when we first started backpacking, it was like, oh my goodness, do not pull, like, you didn't bring your cell phone backpacking, did you? Like I think my dad would explain to people, you'd kind of like pull it out if you wanted to like send your family. It was like nobody took their phone. It was against the rules, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Yes, exactly. And we, like you said, we always hid our phones and like, is anyone looking? I need to check in or text home and let everyone know we're okay. And now it's like everybody, like you're carrying your phone. You never know what you want to take a picture of.
Yes, and I love like in February and March when the people start their through hikes of the AT that are going to vlog it, they're filming, all parts of their day. So,
You-
we have our phones, all these young kids out there have their phones.
Yeah, I started um, like a digital camera that had a card in when we started hiking, and then couldn't wait to get home to print out pictures for everyone to see. I don't think we used, I think it was a digital camera. I don't think we had any film cameras that we took.
I don't think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, I did buy a decent digital camera for our hiking adventures. So,
All right, I think I have one more slide here. We wanted to end our portion with some tips for you. Like if you're wondering, like, hey, what after all these years, what are your best tips? And I think my dad would agree. I was kind of running these by him earlier today. I know my number one tip would be easy food choices. And there's a picture of me in my spare bedroom, like planning out our food choices. That's usually my part. Is to get the food, plan the food. I very diligently plan it out ahead of time. I label stuff. I decide like what we're having for dinner on Friday and what we're having for breakfast on Saturday morning. Um, that we think that's a good tip because once you're out there on the trail, you're so exhausted from actually being on the trail. The last thing you want to do is think about food or be like, I don't know, do you want to eat this? Do you want to eat this? So I do spend a significant amount of time ahead of time. We no longer do the like 3 backpacking meals a day. Our breakfasts are usually pretty grab and go. our lunches are like wraps or something that we could real easily just like packs off. It's right on the outside. We don't have to unpack everything. I feel like our food has come a long way. So definitely stick to easy food choices. Our number two tip is to take an umbrella. Um, Here's something else we would have never, like years ago when we started. No, like you wouldn't have been caught dead with an umbrella. I think we've laughed at people that hike with umbrellas. They make really nice, lightweight backpacking umbrellas now, and they have come in handy many times. They're good for a sun umbrella. We like them in the rain because then you don't really need a raincoat. It's usually hot. You put the raincoat on, then you're sweating, so you're like getting wet from the outside, getting wet from the inside. So I feel like we hardly even ever take our raincoat or take our raincoat out of our pack. We do usually take them still, but we don't often take them out of our pack. Do you want to cover the last two, Dad?
Well, I was just going to say that leading up to the umbrella, we've tried different um, different size rain jackets because you try and get something to cover your pack. I think we had ponchos at one time that were made for backpacks. They were a struggle to get on, and like Shauna said, they were just so hot, and it was just so much trouble. And we've tried different things over the years, but definitely settled in on the umbrellas. Yeah, the staying steady with our hiking in our earlier years would just push, uh, whether it was mostly climbing up a hill, a mountain, and we would just go hard and not get very far, and then we'd be wore out. It'd just be like, you can't do it. So we have learned to slow our pace and very seldom stop. And if we do stop, it's not more than a minute or two. Just catch your breath, turn around, say, "Hey, are you okay?" Okay, yeah, let's keep going, and just slow our pace till we get to the top. And even once we get to the top, stay steady, stay slow until your legs feel better, until you catch your breath, and then pick up the pace a little on the level or downhill. But that's made a big difference in our hiking. It seems I think it gives us more stamina through the day rather than pushing hard and then have to sit down or have to take your pack off. And it's just so hard to get started again. So uh, that's one thing that we do and we just, when we're hiking, it depends. Shauna will lead one day. Like if it's multiple days hiking, Shauna will lead one day, and then I will lead the next day. And I'd pretty much let Shauna set the pace. And if she's out ahead of me a little bit and I drop back, that's fine. Or I think it goes the same way when I'm leading. I pretty much set my own pace, and if she can't quite maintain that pace, she drops back a little bit briefly and then will catch back up. But it works out well. We've come to understand each other's pace and work with it that way.
Since he's like a foot taller than me, so his pace. I joke that we always walk at my pace. Like if I'm leading, we walk at my pace. If he's leading, we walk at my pace because
I
he
don't
has to
think
hold up.
I don't think so. I mean, no. And like people have asked me, well, like you're there all day, multiple days. What do you guys do? And I said, well, there's times that we can carry on a conversation for an hour. And then there's times that we get a little separation between us and we don't say a word to each other unless we see something or need something. But it's it's changed for the better, our hiking.
And then our last tip is just to hike your own hike, which you've probably heard in some version somewhere. But honest to goodness, you really should hike your own hike. We love talking to people on the trail. We love talking to people with more experience, less experience, different experience, and we like to listen, maybe try out some of their suggestions, but ultimately we always go back to what works for us and what we enjoy. What do you think, Dad?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've talked to a lot of great people, and if we notice something like, hey, we noticed you're using this particular whatever, we would strike up a conversation with them. And for the most part, everyone is so nice that you run into, talk to. I mean, we've met people that will stop briefly and chat, or some of them just are on a mission and are ready to hike and don't want to spend the time talking. But in the shelter areas, whether it be Laurel Highlands or the AT, we've had a lot of great conversations and have learned a lot over the years. But yeah, like Shawna said, it comes down to what works best for you. So
Absolutely. All right. Hopefully you find those tips helpful. And then I think as Haley said, we can hold off until questions at the end. Oh, here's where I snuck in some beard pictures. My dad used to have a great beard. Um,
it was
and my
my
kids miss it too.
my COVID beard, I think. It was my 3-year COVID beard.
It's awesome on the trail because it's either like, oh, people want to talk to him about it, or people are like, whoa, like almost like avoid him. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I'm with this, mountain man here.
What was the finish line? What picture is that?
That's when we did the amazing race.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
In Murraysville.
Yes.
So we do other stuff too. I kind of threw that in there, just some like fun day stuff to get us out and about. But local to my community, they did like a little day long amazing race, and you had to do little challenges and stuff. So that was kind of fun too, because we're fans of the show. So, all right, Kim, take it away. I'm gonna stop sharing here, hopefully successfully.
Thank you. I love this story because it does. You painted the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail just as those of us that are working on those lands every day. That is what we want that trail to do for people. Absolutely. So I'm going to give a general background of that trail. It is something unique. It is our longest backpacking trail in state parks. All of our backpacking trails in state parks, they are all in Western Pennsylvania. So that's kind of a unique feature. It's the mountain ranges here really lend themselves to that. There are certainly other trails, but ones that are specifically in state parks, they are in Western Pennsylvania, the longest of them being the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. So the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail is a 70-mile backpacking day hiking trail that that essentially is the main feature of Laurel Ridge State Park. So that's part of the complex that I work for. So I'm at Laurel Hill and Laurel Ridge State Park. So in essence, we have a little over 14,000, I should say, actually almost 15,000 acres at Laurel Ridge State Park. So it is a very big park. It's a unique park in that we don't own the land of the entire trail. So we do lease some of the land. For example, I'm sure you're familiar, those that have hiked it, going through Seven Springs. So that would be private property. So we have like a use agreement with Seven Springs and the group there. We go through Forbes State Forest. We go through Game Commission lands. We go into Ohio State Park. So there's a whole kind of combination. We also have other private entity lands like the Johnstown Water Authority that we have a land use agreement with. So it's very unique. Our jurisdiction is the trail and 200 feet on either side of the trail. So all those kind of state park rules apply to that trail. We do have 6 parking areas for the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail and 8 overnight shelter areas. And you are exactly right. Those shelter areas have 5 shelters at each one, and then there's tent space for 25 to 30 people. So we do that. A big part of what we do is natural resource management. So we do only allow overnight camping in those shelter areas, and you do have to have pre-registration. So the nice thing about that is if you want to head out and you want the shelter area, the shelter itself to yourself, you can do that. Some of the other, on the AT and some of the other trails that you may have used, you might show up at the shelter and you're sleeping with strangers. So it really is a great first time for folks. The mile markers that are there, we know that those mile markers aren't exactly on those miles now that we all have something that can track our miles, but they are really useful to keep yourself on pace, to kind of know where things are. They're really useful for us as well when we do have to head out and help someone out. When we get a call from our ridge runners, they can give us a mile marker, right? So they give us, by mile marker 65, we've got a large tree down, going to need a chainsaw. So they're really useful, not only for the hiker, but for the maintenance of that trail as well. The trail will actually turn 50 next year in 2026. So it was officially finished in 1976. Most of the land that was acquired for the trail was acquired by the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy and then conveyed over to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for Laurel Ridge State Park. So we're kind of celebrating that next year, which will be really fun. So we have partners and multiple entities, and we're going to get out there even more than we do. I have definitely requested to move my office to the trail. I have been denied more than once, but I do live really, really close. I only live about a mile from the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. It is something absolutely spectacular. There's something super special about it. It got you all going, and now taking your daughters. When you're planning those trips, we do recommend getting your hands on a paper copy of the map. There's a lot of places you can get them. You can always give us a call or shoot us an email and we can send one to you. Planning out, even though you know where you're going to be staying, you've made prior reservations, knowing those elevation profiles, knowing the topography. This trail does run from the deepest gorge in Pennsylvania, which is the Youghiogheny Gorge, to the 3rd deepest gorge in Pennsylvania, which is the Conemaugh Gorge. So the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania is actually the 2nd deepest gorge in the state. So it is very significant coming out of the Youghiogheny Gorge. It is steep. Our maintenance crew, actually, it's very, very steep going down into the shelter area there at Ohiopyle. They call those 2 hills Misery and Agony, because they're also hiking with weed whackers and chainsaws and many other accommodations that they can take out there. So they are looking at alternative routes around Misery and Agony at times, which is cool. But it really is something special. We're always happy to help someone plan a trip because it takes time, right? There's investment in gear. The gear is not inexpensive by any means. So you take some time to learn a little bit, learn from others and what they've done. We're always happy to help plan a trip if you're taking a group out. We do allow groups to rent the shelter areas, but we do ask that they only rent 3 shelters at a time, so that those that are through hiking, there's always space for them to be moving through. So out of those in any given shelter area, we try to keep it to just 3 shelters. That way there's space for some of those through hikers that aren't carrying a tent and want to be able to use the shelter. And you mentioned some of the accommodations. The privies that are there always surprise people. We just recently did a park inspection and had some folks here that had never been on the trail, and it really is nice. It also it's some significant sustainability having those, that we don't have people digging cat holes in the woods, right? For 50 years of the trail, it wouldn't look the same way. We do provide firewood as well. That's part of that sustainability also. You can take dead and down trees for your fire, but 50 years of the trail, that forest structure would look really, really different if folks were taking that. Looking for those salamanders, you need some of that dead and down on the ground for that habitat. So we like to keep that sort of thing there. We do provide shelterwood, but one thing we are, post-COVID, we have a lot of people using the trail. It's not a guarantee. So that's just something to think about. We do try to be really diligent about around Thanksgiving. We'll try and get those shelters filled up. Most of the shelter areas now have a specific wood shelter, which is really nice because the wood is staying much drier. It used to just be a pile of wood, right? And now we're starting to put those shelters in. A design actually by our team here, the roof
that need to go in the microwave
slides back. So the roof slides back so that we can actually put we can actually dump a dump truck full of firewood, which is really nice. But we can't, in the winter, we can't necessarily get in there to replenish firewood. So we do ask folks to use it somewhat sparingly, use it for warmth and use it for cooking, but not large bonfires, that are just there for the ambiance. It really is something we want folks to use to maintain a safe, healthy trip while they're out there. The bear pools are also really great. One thing about our forest structure there is that it's a very mature forest on most of the ridge. And so it's really hard to find a tree to hang your bear bag. So the bear pools have made that so much nicer. Again, something you don't have to think about. A lot of folks do ask if we have issues with bears on the trail. Very rare. It's a pretty wide open landscape between Game Commission property and forestry property. They have plenty of space that they're not necessarily interested in the shelters. Here and there, we see them come in, but there definitely are critters hanging out in those shelter areas, right? If you've stayed in a shelter, you probably have met a mouse. So there's a lot of reasons to use those bear pools that aren't necessarily just for bears. So it's really good to kind of to get your food out of there, get anything that would smell good to a mouse, be able to get that out of the way. So even if you're not worried about bears, I would recommend using those bear pools and just get in the habit of doing so. But yeah, I think that's all I have as far as a general overview of the trail. I would just say reach out. If you're looking to plan a trip, we're always happy, whether it's our clerical staff, our law enforcement officers, our education team here. We're always happy to help because it isn't an easy step to make that first kind of get out, one foot in front of the other. Make sure I was the same way. My pack was so heavy, it was unbelievable. And we've all, we can hand, tips and tricks that we've learned as well, and have some, specific experts who spend a ton of time on the trail can really help you out with that. So give us a call. And any questions?
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Shawna.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah. So Eric Knopf-Snyder, you have a question?
I do. First off, I want to say thank you guys. This was so awesome. So I am actually scheduled to do my first full through hike on Saturday. I'm starting. So, and I just did a warm up hike this weekend that was really difficult, and I was really kind of down and like, man, I'm not as excited for this as I had been in the weeks leading up to it. But you guys have gotten me really excited for it again. So thank you. Really looking forward to it. Kim, I did want to ask, what are your thoughts on the water situation right now? Because I know it's been really dry, and that's one of the concerns that we had is what the water situation is going to be like. Are the pumps a viable option at most of the places? Are we better off with the creeks? What are your feelings there?
That's a